Thank you very much. I'm going to talk to the Minister for a brief minute and then open it to all of you. And one thing which came through your speech, which also came through going to see Pravin Gordhan yesterday, is that on the whole, most of South Africa's problems seem to be more in the microeconomic than the macroeconomic area. But can I just ask you about one macroeconomic thing, which is the effect of the strong rand on all the people here? I know it's not your job to control interest rates, but in terms of trying to ameliorate that, what do you see as your role?
Well, as you know, that the audience here sits on both sides of the benefits of a strong rand and also the risks posed by a strong currency. Over the past 12 months, we've have it on record that we already have, because we all understand that it's not just a strong currency that is a problem, but it's a volatile currency more than anything. So we've been trying to stabilize our currency over the period. Unfortunately, amongst the emerging markets, our currency is one of the most traded currencies, and as a result, also the most vulnerable because of where we're located. But also to try to maintain, because the other difficulty is, at what point would you want to maintain your currency? Depends on how strong your export sector is, and also how strong and what level of imports would you actually want to look at. So we've spent in excess of 50 billion rands trying to do that, but that's now but one instrument only. A number of suggestions have come up with, because also as we would understand that during the crisis, what we saw was a huge volume of capital inflows, which have impacted on this. Again, as I've indicated, those inflows might have not been a very bad thing, because a country that was running a current account deficit, this has actually helped to offset that deficit. But having said that, we also are cognizant of the fact that our exporters have actually suffered severely as a result. But the interesting thing is the growth that we saw in the motor manufacturing, even during that period, that they actually did well. But also the structure of our economy also needs to be looked at, as you've correctly indicated, that some of our solutions lie in the on the micro side. So we need a proper coordination of the two in order for us to do that. But when the Reserve Bank looks at the option, at what action needs to be taken, they take all these factors into account.
What came through to me, both, you put it very eloquently, is the search for jobs. And it strikes me that South Africa at the moment is stuck in a thing where growing at 3.7% is great, but you need to be at 6%, and the gap between the two is what frightens people. And what also strikes me, talking to business people, is the big problem. These are the people who need to create the jobs that you want. But uncertainty plays a great role. And when they look at the government, on the one hand, they see a government which has long-term growth strategies, but they also worry about the new labour law, they worry about some of the talk of nationalisation, they worry about corruption things. Perhaps you can say a bit about the labour law just to begin with.
Okay. Our labour legislation, as we would all appreciate, and also the other difficulty that I said we are faced with, confronted with, is a difficulty of trying to address the imbalances of the past, but whilst in the process trying to build an economy that is able also to deliver to the rest of the population. So I think we've gone a long way in trying to protect the rights of workers and trying to make sure that those that are employed are actually in the right environment in terms of international standards. But I know that currently we have these pieces of legislation that are serving before public, and I think it's important for us to engage with those pieces of legislation first, and then because that's what will enrich. It's the product that will come out of the engagement that will produce legislation that will serve both the employees and the employer, but also that government plays a critical role in ensuring that environment holds.
Do you think, though, however, it's one of the innate, inherent problems of a party as big as the ANC, that on the one hand they have figures like you and Pravin, who come to audiences like this and are able to say that, but on the other hand, you have a much more kind of firebrand element, which is breathing a different message.
Yeah, and the fortunate part is that also that firebrand element also gets an opportunity also to engage, other than outside in the media, but also it gets an opportunity to engage in the structures where these debates continue. And I don't think it would be fair of us to expect or to silence those voices, because you get an opportunity of confirming if your policies are right when you have such voices. But also it's engagements like these, which I think should also be be taken in other informal engagements where we are able to find each other, because if we don't have an opportunity like this, there isn't an engagement. Besides responding to questions, as I sit here, it also helps also because you also get to, you get the views of what the players in the field have to say.
I'll let the players unleash their views in a second. In terms of power and electricity and that issue, do you think that is something which is, that for looking at it from the outside, that looks like a kind of road crash that is bound to happen?
Yeah, we actually are working very hard at that, and as you've seen, the process of putting in place legislation that allows for the entry of independent power producers, and also making sure that there is adequate competition. The ISMO ensures that our power generator does not have absolute monopoly, but we're looking at an engagement, and we have invested heavily in building that infrastructure, but we're looking at other options, also looking at the clean energy side as well, which a number of initiatives have come up, including the waste management one that serves to do that, whilst we also deal with the environmental issues.
But do you think rationing is inevitable?
I would think so. But it entirely depends also, because as I've earlier indicated, but it's not always our view, it's what comes out of the consultation process.
You talked, just one last thing, you talked a lot up there about the role of South Africa in the region and the possible creation of a Southern African, Eastern African free trade zone.
Precisely.
What kind of timetable would you apply to that?
We would have, this has been in the pipeline for some time, but I think the crisis, the economic crisis, has actually brought us even much closer to actually the realization of such, because we have realized that if we were to have that free trade area, if we were to be able to engage in projects of, the infrastructure projects, that would actually benefit all of us in the process. Therefore, without necessarily putting time frames, but I can see that from all our member states in all three of these communities, we are making good progress, and we just hosted last week the SACU Council and later the SACU Summit. Positive outcomes are likely to take us forward in that area.
Historically, what's happened when people have put forward free trade zones is that, to begin with, local unions seem fairly happy about it, but then as they actually look at the details and the idea of tariffs coming down, they begin to get more angry. Do you not anticipate that being a problem here?
Not entirely, because even in the absence of the free trade area, we have actually moved quite a long way, particularly at SADC level, and it has proven to be a win-win situation.
Well, look, I think I should throw it open to the people who know much more about South African business than I do.